Welcome back to Squawk Box. Pfizer and BioNTech submitting data from their study of their vaccine in children 5 to 11 years old to the FDA. But an article in the Wall Street Journal today, quoting people familiar with the process, now saying that the various reviews that need to take place could push approval to late November. Joining us right now is Dr. Scott Gottlieb, former FDA commissioner, CNBC contributor. Of course, he serves on the boards of Pfizer and also Illumina. His new book, Uncontrolled Spread, Why COVID-19 Crushed Us and How We Can Defeat the Next Pandemic, is out now. And as we've said before, it's a great book. Scott, thanks for joining us. Help us with this, though. I think there was, I don't know if an expectation, maybe it was just a hope that this could be out, at least first shots, as early as Halloween, effectively, end of October. Now we're thinking maybe a month later. What do you think?
Well, look, I wouldn't foreclose the possibility that this could be out in October. Pfizer submitted the clinical data to the agency yesterday. It's effectively a rolling submission where they're going to submit the application in different portions. The main portions that have to come still are the CMC portions of the review, the things that deal with chemistry, manufacturing controls. Those should be filed with the agency very shortly, and at that point, the formal EUA request will be made. But the agency has a lot of experience with this vaccine. They've seen a lot of clinical data. Remember, this pediatric dose is just a lower dose of the existing formulation. So they have all the experience with the existing formulation of the vaccine. So I think that they're going to be able to move efficiently. I would say that end of October, and I've long said end of October is a possibility, but it's an optimistic possibility. If it slips, it could slip to mid-November. You also have to put against this this backdrop the fact that there's been a lot of turnover in that division inside the FDA. 2 senior leaders leaving that division. So that's going to put added strain on them. That's a small group to begin with. Typically, there just aren't a lot of vaccines approved. So that's a small group to begin with, and it's been under tremendous strain. I still think that end of October is possible. If it slips, I think it could slip to mid-November, which is where I've been all along.
Let me ask you a different question, which is going to be about hesitancy, but in this case, hesitancy that parents may have to provide the vaccine for their children. There's a lot of parents out there, including myself, I know, and others, Becky, I think that will be trying to get their children the vaccine as quickly as possible. But I know a lot of parents who may not. And I'm curious how you think that's going to play out and what you think school systems, both public and private schools around the country, whether they're going to ultimately mandate it and how it's going to work.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a reluctance to mandate this so long as this vaccine is under an emergency use authorization for children. And I think there'll also be a reluctance by the CDC to contemplate putting this in the childhood immunization schedule until you have multiple approved vaccines for the pediatric population. Right now, Pfizer is the only vaccine available under an emergency use authorization. So I think any kind of mandate from the CDC where this gets incorporated into the childhood immunization schedule and states and local districts start to adopt that is more likely a fall 2021, winter 2022 event. I don't think it's going to play out in this cycle. We've seen about 50% uptake in the use of vaccines among children for those kids who are now eligible to be vaccinated, 12 and above. I would expect that it'll be a little bit lower for the younger age population. There's a perception that younger kids are less at risk from COVID, and also parents tend to be a little bit more concerned about putting medical products in otherwise healthy young children. So I would expect to see a little bit more resistance and hesitation about vaccinating the under 12 population, and in the 12 and above, we've only achieved about 50% uptake. So I do think that that's going to be an issue, and it's going to play out geographically as well.
Right, but Scott, so how does that play out, though, in the workplace? And the reason I ask is there's a lot of business leaders that have put off, quote unquote, return to the office till January. I think in part, if you speak to them, because of this issue around vaccination for children. If you don't believe that a large portion of the country, in terms of the 5 to 11-year-olds, are going to ultimately take the vaccine, or at least take it in the next 6 months, does that change that dynamic?
I don't think so in the near term, because you're going to have multiple things going on at the same time. We're going to be getting through this Delta surge of infection over the next couple of months. By Thanksgiving, we'll be through it. Prevalence levels will decline. You'll have a vaccine available for younger kids, hopefully, if everything goes well. The FDA affirms the review, the data that Pfizer submits to the agency. So in a setting of lower prevalence and rising vaccination among children, that should be enough. Those two colliding events should be enough to reduce the incidence of outbreaks in the school so that people will feel more reassured. The distribution of this vaccine among children is going to be highly regionalized. If you look at the measles, mumps, and rubella vaccine uptake, It's about 98% in Connecticut, where I am right now. The national average is about 90%, 94% in a very high year. It's actually down from 90% now. So that means there's a lot of states well below 90%. There's a lot of states well above 90%. I think we're going to see the same thing with this vaccine. Here in the Northeast, we may see very good uptake of the pediatric vaccine. In Florida, not so much.